radical leftist, Marxist, communist, Leninist, and socialist propaganda encoded in a movie. That is our topic today. Please subscribe to my channel. I am the Wisdomizer, and this is the Primordial Wave. And today we are going to decode a movie. And as I used to say here, when they encode, we decode. That's our job. And my job is to inspire you to do your own research, to do your own fact finding, and to making your own conclusion. Many normal people, when you watch a movie, you think that it is only for entertainment, to something to do at your own leisure time. But the reality of the fact is that this is not often the case. Many of these Hollywood movie makers will encode messages, subliminal messages in movie that will end up programming the people in something called mass behavioral modification. And that is the agenda of some of these movie makers. And Hollywood movie producers and movie makers and whoever is funding this multi-billion industry, they have interest. They have interest in global behavioral changes, and they have been utilizing this very avenue efficiently and effectively. And that tells us the reason why intelligence agencies, military intelligence agencies are interested in movies, because it's one of the ways to change people. Every person, every group of people, any society is prone to something called suggestibility. Every human being is suggestible. And people who condition the mind of other people using these highly advanced, sophisticated psychoanalytic techniques, every person who understands this will know that to change the behavior of the people collectively is easy. And they have been doing this for a very long time. And Hollywood is run by highly liberal, leftist, oftentimes very socialist or Leninist radicals whose intention was to modify the society, to change the society, and to deviate from the divine order of reality. And the values and the morals and the principles that have sustained the planet for hundreds and thousands of years, they intend to change those ones. And of course, I am not a political Luddite, right? I am not advocating society being static. But the point of view I'm trying to make is that this socialist communist agenda they are creating is meant to do one thing, to create a cognitive singularity, what you may call hive mind, which is already beginning to happen with the advent of social media, where people can no longer reason in terms of individual ideas. People are no longer deep. So creating this hive mind society is that part of the socialist propaganda, socialist agenda they are trying to implement on a global level. And it seems they are succeeding. And everywhere you look, even in colleges and universities, many professors are extremely liberal, extremely leftist leaning thinkers whose goal is to modify the behavior of the next generation. Because this plan, this goal of system modification is not something they do instantly. It's something that they have, that will be gradual. Gradual, you modify the society, you modify the behavior, and you push them towards collectivism, right? In the name of creating this utopic egalitarianism, right? And we know utopic egalitarianism does not work, and that's what they've tried in many places. It has not worked because it kills a sense of divine God-given right to exist as an individual, right? That idea of divine republicanism, where I came from, part of society I came from, we're Republicans. We're Republicans. I'm not talking of Republican Party. I'm talking of republicanism. We're anti-hegemony. We're anti control, a group of small head technocrats, elites, controlling and ruling it over other people. We don't believe anyone has the divine right to rule other people. And the agenda they are pushing is the agenda of neutralizing the society to create egalitarian socialism, and communism. And we know that socialism is a step towards communism. Anyone who studied Karl Marx very well knows that he said that the final perfection of Karl Marx's dialectical materialism will peak in society attaining communism. So whenever a socialist agenda is implemented, know that it is a step towards Marxist communism. And that has to be resisted. And that is why I am a believer in what you call the Second Amendment in the United States, the right to bear arms and defend yourself if need be. You arm yourself, you protect your family if need be, because a society where the masses are not armed is a society that could be taken advantage of by the oligarchs, by the few ruling elites, right? The few ruling elites want to disarm you because they want to control you. Because when the masses are armed, the government is not stronger than the masses, right? And one of the things that makes the government seem to be strong is because they utilize the law to have the monopoly of violence, right? But once you remove that, you discover that the people are stronger. The people are the power, right? So you cannot allow this agenda, this radical agenda of the transformation of society to take our God-given right. It's God who gave us right. And if we as a people come under a social contract, under a political social contract, we can also withdraw our contract when the government is not fulfilling that obligation of respecting individual human rights, right? Individual liberty and freedom to pursue and to dream as you wish, right? So, and that is what this socialist agenda they are propagating all over the place, all over the place, is all over the place. The reason people don't wake up to this very threatening program is because they don't understand the future. They don't understand the vision that these people have for the future. And that vision is a vision of cognitive singularity. And that cognitive singularity is tied to the coming of the AI. Before AI is finally implemented, the people have to be conditioned that the identity disappears. And if you have soul, you have to stand against that because that is tyranny to come in the future. So let's talk about this movie and how this satanic, Luciferian, evil, diabolical, um, extremely liberal, leftist, communist movie makers in Hollywood are promoting this neutralization of the social fabric, the fabric of the society, to neutralize it to create an agenda for the next evolution of the society, which is going to be collectivist thinking. Because when they put everybody in a social system that is collectivist, what happens is that you can better control people, right? You can create what is already going on in the world today, what they call social crediting. Once you implement this idea of social crediting, it means that everybody is completely controlled, because when you did not meet the criteria for social credit, it means that you don't exist. You die off, you're extinct. And if you read a book by, I've forgotten the name of this book, but his name, the author's name is Cyrus Parser. He spoke about social extinction. And these socialists, these globalists, these internationalists are encoding social extinction programs on many things in schools, in movies, in digital equipment, technologies that encoding this massive socialist, excuse me, socialist-inspired mass extinction as an agenda for for as a futuristic agenda, and that is part of what we are going to discuss today. So I'm going to share my screen. Many historians, when they talk about communism, they think that communism is a thing of the past because Russian style communism has been destroyed, right? They think that Russian style communism is no longer applicable because in the early 90s, the Soviet Union disintegrated. But what people fail to understand, and anyone who does research very well will understand that, in fact, the revolution that led to the emergence of Russia as a communist state, the revolution of 1917, was indeed and in fact sponsored by the Western globalists, by the Western powers that be, by the Western banking forces, right? That is an irony that the same Westerners who fought communism were the ones who sponsored the emergence of communism. So if Russians, so to say, were not the originator of communism, how do we think that communism has come to an end? Because the balkanized, federated communist states of Russia has been disintegrated in the early 1990s. The people who are pushing this global communist society and socialist society are not Russians. They are rather people, the Anglo European establishment, and not everyone. I'm talking of certain few elites, certain people in the secret society, certain people, certain small head. They are the ones who are pushing this agenda step by step. Read Morals and Dogma. What's his name? Albert Pike. If you find that book, read it, and you see that these agendas are mapped out for time for the future. So the movie that we are going to analyze is The Joker. Very good movie, psychodrama, a kind of psychological thrill. And this movie exposes the weakness of the society, exposes poverty, exposes the social agitation, exposes the condition that led to the emergence of what you call the revolution of the working class, communism, right? So, and we are going to discuss, we're going to pinpoint some of these agendas well hidden in this movie. This movie is meant to put in the mind. Remember, it's subliminal suggestion, right? Subliminal suggestion. And you have to understand psychoanalytics to know what subliminal suggestion. They're programming, um, they're programming the people from the subconscious realm because that is where your behavior is changed. And you will be carrying out action, behavior, and thinking that action is intentionally your action, but actually it's a program running in your mind like a software. So I am going to give a summary of that, this very movie. So the main character is Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck was adopted as a child, as a baby. He was exposed to severe childhood trauma due to abuse and neglect. He developed persistent psychopathology, mental illness, right? He's highly self-isolated, what you may call like a loner. He's just a lonely, somebody who withdraws from the society and wants to be by himself. He dreams of becoming a stand-up comedian. He was subjected to ridicule, mistreatment, and abuse. A co-worker gave him a firearm to protect himself. He was ambivalent in the beginning, but then accepted the gun. While performing at a children's hospital, was dressed as a clown, was performing at a children's hospital. His gun accidentally fell out on the floor, right? He was fired from his job for this very reason. So, on his way home, he was molested by a group of well-dressed businessmen who seemed to be people from the upper class. He used his gun, the gun that his friend gave him, and shot those men to death. This first act of murder bothered his conscience. He was highly troubled. However, he eventually got desensitized. He found out through a letter written by his mother that his biological father was his mom's former employer, Thomas Wayne. Mr. Wayne is the wealthiest man in the city. He got very upset with his mother. Then he decided to meet Mr. Wayne at his mansion. He was trying to trace his history. Mr. Wayne did not want to talk to him and refused to acknowledge him as a son. He would later kill Mr. Wayne and his wife in front of their teenage adolescent son. The police investigated Arthur regarding the murder, right? Meanwhile, at this time, mass uprising was starting to emerge in the city against wealthy people, against the bourgeoisie, the rich people. At the same time, Arthur was able to find out details of his adoption and abuse. He would later kill his mother out of anger. He smothered his mother with a pillow while his mom was in the hospital. He has met a beautiful African American female called Sophie in an elevator previously. And then he fell in love with her. Arthur went to visit his girlfriend, but realized his assumed relationship was a product of his delusional disorder. He met this African American female in an elevator, and then in his mind, they were in love, and he was imagining all this relationship. But this was part of his mental illness. It wasn't real. It was a delusion. It wasn't a factual relationship. So he goes home and started getting ready to appear on a TV show called The Murray Franklin Show. Suddenly, two friends came to pay him a condolence visit due to his mother passing away. He killed one of the guests in a gruesome scene. He finally made his appearance on the Murray Franklin show, where he confessed to multiple murder on a live television show. He then shot the host point blank on the head, leaving him dead. At this time, Arthur has initiated a widespread revolution against the rich and the affluence throughout the city. So this is kind of a summary. This is a summary of the movie, and if you haven't seen the movie, go and watch it. And if you have watched the movie, go and rewatch it again. And I'm going to be pinpointing where they covertly hid Leninist, Marxist, communist, socialist, extremely leftist propaganda and agenda in this movie. And these are subliminally coded as they have done over and over and over. This movie is purely Marxist philosophy, revolution. And the purpose of putting out this movie is in vivo desensitization. It's a psychological trick. They're putting ideas in your mind for social behavioral modification, right? Just as you go to school, you don't know that you may know that your teacher gradually has modified your behavior. The same thing with movie, the same thing with social media. The purpose of these outlets is to modify the behavior. But if you understand yourself, if you understand history, if you understand who is in charge and who is speaking, you'll be able to spot all these things and nobody can control your mind, right? So this movie, as you watch it, you're going to see the angst of the masses, this, the socio-political and economic discontent. And this socio-political and economic situation in any given society is what triggers what we may call the workers' revolution. You will see Arthur living in poverty, struggling, dealing with men. You will see this, what you call the human situation. He was poor, was adopted, was abused, was he had a dream, wanted to be a world best class stand-up comedian. It did not work out. He was ridiculed. So you see what they might call the oppressed people, the people struggling economically, the people struggling to just make something out of their life, and it's not working. They live in perpetual poverty. He had to depend on the government to get his medication. Sometimes he wasn't getting the medication that he is supposed to get, living with mental health issue. So you see, they putting out in this movie a a situation, a social situation, a social environment. It's like a nursery that broods mass revolution, right? Because many people will identify with this situation. We identify with this condition. Majority of the people who are working paycheck to paycheck, trying to pay their bills and dreaming of becoming something they oftentimes never succeeded in becoming. The frustration, the misery, the angst, the poverty is there in the movie, right? And this is a trigger. This is a trigger if you understand who is making this movie, if you understand how they gradually condition your mind. I'm not saying poverty is bad. I'm not saying it's okay for the rich to oppress the sick. I'm just trying to expose how they create a trigger mechanism. This is a highly, highly subliminal advanced behavioral modification. They create a trigger mechanism. They give you a scenario that you identify with, and your subconscious mind absorbs that scenario, and you are going to be acting on that. You're not aware of it, right? So again, another situation, an African American, beautiful, seems to be very well coordinated individual, but is a single mom, right? Another trigger, they're putting another trigger code on you because many people on this planet, particularly in the United States, identify with this situation. The brown paper bag. If you live in the United States, you understood, somebody carrying the brown paper bag, probably grocery shopping, struggling single mom, paying the bill, utilities being cut off, not having money, not having insurance. So they create this scenario, this brown plastic bag carrying is create a trigger in the mind, right? Beautiful African American. He meets this other guy in the elevator, and because of Arthur's psychosis, because of his mental illness, they become friends, and he was imagining this delusional relationship that wasn't actually happening. So Arthur meets a young, beautiful African American single mother by the name Sophie in an elevator, and they became good friends, right? They became friends. So I've already talked about this. They create a very realistic, real life mental trigger. You see Black, beautiful, well dressed, fashionable, Black women, young, youthful, right? And it's a working class, it's a worker. That's the whole idea. Remember, it's a psychological trick, it's a psychological trigger, the subliminal message they're passing to you. is a worker. If you see him riding in an elevator, walking, probably don't have any means of transportation, rise public transportation. These are trying to give you the idea of the proletariats, the working class, the workers coming together. Elevator is a symbolism. They are on a journey together, right? Arthur is suffering. He has mental illness. He's trying to dream to become this, which is everywhere he goes, he's ridiculed. And then you see a Black woman, beautiful, young, youthful, right? Carrying a brown paper bag, probably no means of transportation, no insurance, just suffering, right? So they're trying to unite the people. They're trying to unite these two individuals under one comradeship, right? They have something in common, and that's poverty. And that poverty is what unites the working class for Marxist revolution, right? So again, a poor worker dreaming to become a world-class comedian didn't work out. He tried to make a joke and it's just monumental failure. His dream was never achieved. You see economic struggle, and people looking down on him. It was a failure, literally what you would call, what President Trump might call a loser, you know? He was a loser. He lost everything. He lost everything. You see the mental anguish. You see the suffering. And the reason they are putting out these scenes is because majority of the people identifies with it, right? They're trying to create a code trigger, a Marxist code trigger, right? A revolutionary code trigger, right? Telling you that only few people control the means of production and distribution and wealth, and the masses are miserable. So what do the masses do? They have to unite under a revolution, economic, social, cultural, political revolution. And that revolution is meant to upset the status quo or the elite. So let's move on. Another trigger code is that, as I say, most of the trigger code, because these people who write this movie are very brilliant. They understand psychoanalysis, they understand psychology, and they know how to get that trigger code that activates something in your mind subliminally, but you are not aware of it. Your conscious self is not aware of it, right? At all. So if you look at this picture, what do you see? What do you see? Black woman, leather jacket. If you're a Black person in the Western Hemisphere, in America, leather jacket signifies something. The revolution of Huey P. Newton, the Black Panther movement, the social revolution, the leftist, Marxist revolutionaries, right? Afro, beautiful, youthful, strong, Black woman. They're triggering that code in you, Black leftist radicalism. That is what they are promoting by this image. Nothing is by chance. Nothing is accident. You just have to know how they are triggering you, because these are the ways they modify the behavior of the people, and people are acting out without even understanding who is behind the scene, right? You may watch this African-American beautiful woman, girl, without your conscious mind going back in the 60s of Black Panther Revolution. You might not consciously aware, but your subconscious mind understands that. Youthful, strong, powerful, energetic, Black man, Black woman with Afro. They're trying to trigger that code of social and political and economic revolution in the people, right? So you might watch this and then you begin to think in terms of revolution. You don't even know why you are thinking like that, because everything is subliminal, right? This is the subliminal message they are trying to pass. You know, of course, leather jacket is cool. I think Black Panthers are some of the coolest people. When you see them, you know, they're just cool. They're very articulate, very revolutionary, but then very extremely leftist leaning, And I know many people might not forgive me to say that, but it's more of a socialist agenda, socialist kind of leftist leaning, reactionary, to destroy kind of war, launching a war against the system of oppression, right? And that is what they are trying to trigger when you watch this movie. They're trying to recapitulate that on a subliminal mind. And I'm not trying to say, of course, the Black Panthers, they had an argument to make. But what I'm trying to say is that knowing when this system is manipulating people, because the system is a manipulator. They manipulate people and then they extinct you, they destroy you because you react based on the manipulation. But when you get this manipulation, nobody can take advantage of you. You can think about things properly. You don't just follow anyone who says, "Oh, I'm initiating a social revolution," because that person might be operating on a mind program. And if you begin to dance on a tune, on a frequency that the system created, the system will destroy you, right? So just understanding how this subliminal messages is meant to trick you. See, leather jacket, strong, youthful, powerful looking Black women, you know. This is the image they are trying to invoke revolution. They're trying to trigger you for revolution. They're trying to trigger you to think uprising. That is the code. The leftist social, political, economic programming, mind programming. And if you're a survey, of course, you don't allow people to program you. Revolution, firearm, shootout, right? The trigger. That's a sign. It's a code. It's a coded psychological trick. They're trying to put into your mind an idea of armed struggle. That is why you have to be careful. Of course, I believe that every Black person who is eligible should arm themselves for self-protection, the Second Amendment. Yeah, I believe in that. Get a gun and defend yourself and your family. But don't be a reactionary towards the manipulation of the system. Because the system, when they set a bait for you, they will destroy you, right? So if you are initiating, if you are embarking on any kind of political action, you have to make sure that it is your own initiation, it is your own intention, and nobody is manipulating your mind, because there's manipulation all over the place, including this you call the Black Lives Matter, highly controlled, highly manipulated organization, highly controlled. And you cannot achieve any cohesive thing based on that organization because it's the system that is controlling it. Even though seemingly Black people think they're in charge. They're not in charge. They're being manipulated. So this strong Black woman giving the sign of firearm or gun is triggering you to think in terms of uprising, bloody uprising, armed struggle, right? Armed struggle of the working class rising up. So don't fall to the trick. Don't fall to the trick. So again, you see these people, the image, the symbolism, Marxist symbolism of comradeship. If you really look at them, this is a young person, this is an older guy, and he has mental illness. There's nothing in common with them, but you see them making out, see them closing the door, which I believe maybe they have sex, right? That symbolism is the comradeship of all people, Black, white, coming together under Marxist revolution, right? That is the image. Black, white come together and initiate this utopic revolution to create social and political egalitarianism. That is the trigger, that is the trick, that is the mind conditioning, right? Cinematographic mind conditioning. People who make these movies are very, very versed in psychology and esoteric occult, right? So again, you see when this scene on a train, when he was just sitting on his own doing his laughing because he has some mental illness that triggers this spontaneous laughter. He was just sitting down, and you see some business people who look like the upper class, well to do, well educated. He's not well educated. He's struggling. He's poor. And these people have job. He doesn't have job, right? Making fun of him. So already they are putting into your mind antagonism to the capital, capitalist antagonism, you know, that the rich people look down on the poor people. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens, but I'm trying to put out the fact there, how they are conditioning people for conflict. And I'm going to read from this book here by Karl Marx and Engels, the Communist Manifesto. I have my own copy here. And we see that they are trying to initiate, social engineering, Marxist tendencies on the people, the conflict of the two, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, right? The bourgeoisie and the proletariat conflict. They're trying to engineer this conflict, right? And then use that dialectic, that synthesis to create the next new world system that they want. So don't fall for it. So this is what Marx wrote in chapter 1, the bourgeoisie and the I can't say this word, proletarians. He said, the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggle. This movie shows you a class struggle. Class struggle, one is the rich, the well-to-do, educated, polished. The other one is the working class struggling, no job, just struggling, living day by day, trying to survive. So, freeman and slave, patrician and plebeian, lord and serf, guardmaster and journeyman. In a word, oppressor and oppressed stood in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight. A fight that each time ended either in a revolutionary reconstruction of society at large or in the common ruin of the struggling class. Karl Marx, by the way, that Karl Marx is not his real name, right? I think Mordecai, is it Mordecai? I think his name has to do with Mordecai, another secret society guy who created this philosophy for whatever agenda. Let's read on. In the early epoch of history, we find almost everywhere a complicated arrangement of society into various orders, a manifold gradation of social rank. In ancient Rome, we have patricians, knights, plebeians, slaves. In the Middle Ages, feudal lords, vassals, guard masters, journeymen, apprentices, serfs, and in almost all of these particular classes, again, other subordinate gradation. The modern bourgeoisie society that has sprouted from the ruins of feudal society has not done away with class antagonisms. It has only established new classes, new conditions of operation, new forms of struggle in place of the old ones. Our epoch, the epoch of the bourgeoisie, shows, however, this distinctive feature. It has simplified the class antagonisms. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps, into two great classes directly facing each other, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Exactly. whoever wrote this movie, whoever produced this movie had a Marxist agenda, because everything they show you is the conflict between two classes, right? And they are trying, as I say, it's a code trigger. They are trying to trigger the conflict because they want that conflict. They want the fight between the rich and the poor. And the poor will not always win because the poor are often under mind control, right? It's only enlightened poor. I'm not talking of educated, going to school, enlightened poor people or the working class that can win this war. And oftentimes, the masses don't win because the poor working classes, mass classes, classes of the people, they won't win because they react to the bait, they react to the program, the lure of the elites. So when you watch this movie, of course, you're going to pity him. You're going to pity him because they were making fun of him. He was just doing his own. He wasn't bothering anyone. He had mental illness, but he was a sweet guy. He wasn't bothering no one, and they're making fun of him. So he shot them. See, if you watch this movie, of course, they utilized in vivo desensitization. It desensitizes you and makes you to have this animosity towards the rich people that they deserve to die. They deserve to be assassinated. They deserve to be killed. They are brutal, they are insensitive, they are diabolical, they are evil, right? That is subliminal mind program. And that, again, is this dialectical materialism. Karl Marx belonged to the secret society, and he created this program, or whoever sponsored it, he created this program of conflict because they need that duality to be able to function. Without dialectical materialism, duality, they cannot control the society. They have to pitch one group against another to be able to dominate, right? So him shooting and killing this well-dressed businessmen is a triumph of Marxism or socialism. You know, the elite has to die, right? They have to kill them. When I say elite, I'm talking of rich people, right? Of course, there are evil elites, but they're trying to create this antagonism towards people who are rich because we have to do uprising to destroy them, right? So initially, he was when he shot these people, he was bothered. But as time goes on, it becomes normal. As I said, it's in vivo desensitization, which happens all the time in movies. You know, they begin to create a violent scene that your own conscience, you justify it because you are being under mind program, you are being under mind control. And Thomas Wayne in this movie signifies the evil of the rich people. They made him vicious. He didn't want his son. His son was struggling with mental illness. And when his son wanted to trace his history and went to him, he's like, well, I don't want you. So this is a symbol. They made this man a symbol, a white guy, you know, a symbol of the bourgeoisie, like a bourgeoisie symbol, insensitive capitalist, uh, a vulturizing capitalist, an exploiter, and very insensitive, very callous, very evil, right? And that is the trigger code, another trigger code they're putting on people so that you begin to buy this ideology of picking up arms to go and revolt against quote unquote rich people. You could be rich tomorrow. Supposing you're rich tomorrow and people see you that way, wouldn't like it. I'm not saying rich people are not callous or evil, but we got to be very careful as to gradual subliminal mind control of this media to carry out social revolution. If you're going to carry out social revolution, you got to be a thoughtful process, not just a reactionary based on some people are rich and some people are poor. That is not reasonable, right? So, as I said, the target was him. The target was him. It symbolizes everything evil, everything exploitative, right? You see, blame win, carrying platform, placards and signs all over the place, blame win. Whatever happened in the society, blame the rich, right? You see, kill the rich. Another one say, eat the rich. These are trigger code. They're putting stuff in your mind. They are programming you. They are conditioning you to involve in this social revolution, Marxist movement. It's not one-time event. It's a gradual, systematic conditioning. Conditioning, and that is what they have done here. They want to pitch the bourgeoisies and the proletarians to fight one another. And there are people who are watching, who step in and we gain out of whatever conflict that might arise between this class conflict. So this class conflict is often engineered, and know that with something engineered, we have an engineer. An engineer is standing somewhere watching. You know, they call it Hegelian dialectics. They use Hegelian dialectics to create conflict, and then they benefit out of that conflict, and then now they step in and then make new law, right? So again, you look at the poor people, you see the dilemma of life. One time he's sad and crying, and you see the changes in emotion. This movie will take you into roller coaster of emotion. You know, he's smiling hysterically because of his mental illness. So even in his mental illness, he's laughing, but you don't even know the reason why he's laughing. The same thing with poor people. Sometimes they're happy, they're using drugs, they're happy today, and then tomorrow they don't have money to pay their bill, they're sad. So it brings out this whole collection of the emotion often experienced by poor people. And many people can identify with this. And that was intentional in that movie, very intentionally. So it goes deep into your psychology. And if you watch this movie, you're going to see rich people as evil, as bad. You're going anything that happens to them, you justify it with your conscience. That's what in vivo desensitization means. So it's a highly advanced mind program they use in this movie to trick you into social Marxist, Leninist protest and revolution. Don't do that because you're being conditioned. Again, one will say, well, I watched this movie and I didn't do anything because subliminal programming is not conscious, is get to understand the soul is on the dark side of us. That aspect of us we are not aware of. That's where conditioning takes place. So you are carrying out behavior, but you think it is your conscious behavior, but is a hard drive, is a software running in your mind. That software was programmed by somebody else. So the proletarian, I find it difficult saying this word, the proletarian schismatic psychology. The movie shows you the proletarian schismatic psychology, the split psychology. One moment happy, one moment sad, ups and down, the emotions changing. And they wanted to utilize this to make you think of your own condition, that you need social revolution, you need Marxist bloody revolution to be able to be free, right? But remember, if you initiate Marxist bloody revolution, you are going to lose because there are people who are controlling it, people who are moderating it. And that is why money revolutions, even in America, Black people, when they initiate revolution, doesn't last because that was a bait. You are baited and you fall into the trap and they step in and crush you. And before you rise psychologically, it's going to take another years. So be very careful how you are being manipulated using cinematography. So again, you see occultism. If you watch this movie, you see it's full of occult symbolism. It's staring into the mirror. To the mirror often signifies deep unconscious realm, the esoteric realm, the occult, deeply staring into reality at a deeper level because they tell you that is why we condition the people. And again, if you don't understand symbolism, you see, you are not going to see this. Look at this light here. One is on, one is off. Is dialectics is what you call. I'm looking for the word. Manichaean dualism, right? The fight of the opposite, and that is how secret society use to to um, to control the society. The light hemisphere, the dark hemisphere is a fight of good and evil. And that tells me of a Masonic implant, of a Masonic idea. One light, one bulb is on, the other one is dark, you know, good and evil. That's how they program the masses. Again, when you watch this movie and you see this light is dancing, what that dance is the yin and yang, right? Is dancing, cosmic dance. And that dance is the dance between good and evil, the harmony. You know, if you see the caduceus, you see, um, 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 a serpent entwined on it. You know, I think two serpent. I'm not too sure again. Two serpent. I'm not too sure. But what I'm trying to do here is the yin and the yang, the fight, the cosmic war, the duality, the balancing and disbalancing of two opposites, right? So um, that's what it is showing. But if you watch this movie and you don't understand your cult, you're not going to see this at all. Your mind won't even go that. But the thing is like it's programming you on the subconscious mind because we are spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings. As little as this can condition your mind from the subconscious level, but you don't know that. You don't know you're being conditioned because this is highly occult, right? Esoteric symbolism and light and darkness. They have to make you to engage in this war, this cosmic war between light and darkness, because everything within this visible light spectrum is based on duality. Simple. Your soul understands that, and that's why they have to put this there. Your soul understands that. Your conscious awareness is not aware of that, but you are engaged in a battle, and they're pushing you to take a side. What if you stay neutral? What if between this light and dark hemisphere you decide to stay in the middle? You're not engaging in them because they are manipulating you on each side. You get it? So again, you see Masonic implant, you know, as I say, when they encode with decode, is dancing on a checker, the Masonic checkered floor. You're dancing, telling you who is in charge. Some people are manipulating you. Whenever you see this black and white, you're talking of the Masonic, the Freemason, if you understand symbolism. You know, if you don't know symbolism, you're just going to see a guy dancing, right? But this is highly coded Manichaean dualism. You are being manipulated to take a side in this war they are trying to create. And that war is the war of the bourgeoisies and the proletarians or the working class. Don't engage in it because if you do, they are going to come and destroy you. They will destroy you because they're the one who baited you. And if I baited you, if you set a bait, you're hiding somewhere and watching, right? And when you fail in the bait, I will step in and then do what I want to do. So be careful. Why this is important, as I said, is that your subconscious mind is absorbing every detail. You don't get it. Your subconscious mind is absorbing every detail, even though it's dancing and they flash the floor, you know, use camera to flash the floor, you know, just flash it in your mind. You're not going to pay attention to it, but your subconscious soul is getting it. Your other side that you're not aware of gets it that this is a war between two opposites. Don't take side, right? So again, this movie has Masonic imprint, duality, the double-headed ego. You know, the fight between light and darkness is confusion, dialectic, Hegelian dialect, order art of chaos, right? So that is what this movie is all about. As I said, this movie has a lot of esoteric symbolism to that. It has a lot of mind programming. Go and watch it again and pay specific attention, you know, to what is going on. Is a radical Marxist, communist, socialist agenda in this movie, highly coded, and they tell you who is in charge. The secret societies, the Freemasons, um, and they want to involve you. They want to initiate you because they need your energy to engage in this fight between good, quote unquote, good and evil. You know, they want you to pick up arms. If you have arms, use it to defend yourself unreasonably, not to engage in reactionary behavior, because reactionary behavior is an engineered behavior. And when you have been engineered, when somebody is pushing you to take this road and you're taking that road, it means that the person will extinct you, the person will destroy you as time goes on. This is the primordial wave, and I am the and wisdom myself. Please subscribe to my channel. Until next time.